Alright, I've been hankering to play some unique arcade games, so I fired up MAME this week to see what I could find. Got some weird ones, that's for sure, but then also some classics that I think need a little bit more love. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started with 64th Street, a detective story. This is an interesting brawler set in the 1930s, I think. I'm guessing it's the 1930s by the car designs and the fact that one of the characters wears a tie, obviously for extra punching power. And he needs it because, truthfully, the attacks feel very weak. Throwing is awesome because you can smash enemies into the screen and destroy the backgrounds, sometimes multiple times. Check out how I smash up this car. You can also throw them off the stage or into enemies. This is a really fun mechanic. Sometimes objects will pop out. I don't know, I guess they're clues for the story. If you press both buttons, you'll do a special move that sometimes works, but most of the time doesn't. There's also some odd food items for a game like this. Sushi? Cake? Neither will give you much health though. I mean, seriously, I should get like 100% health if I eat that cake. Typically, the enemies are really cheap, especially the bosses. They won't even let me get up. Give me a chance. Animation is also a bit light, but this is a fairly decent game. Nice to see one set in the 1930s. Badlands. This is a top-down racer like Super Sprint, but in an apocalyptic setting. Control is pretty smooth when using MAME and an Xbox 360 controller, but I bet it's even better on the real thing with a steering wheel. Collect wrenches to buy stuff at the store while you'll want to buy the missiles. Seriously, guns just don't cut it in this one. Also, they're heat-sinking missiles, but they don't go around turns, so you gotta line up the enemy just right. There's also a turbo that you can buy in the store, but I'm not sure how to use it. I don't know, maybe it's automatic? Fortunately, there's a ton of different tracks, but they can be a little confusing at times. Oh, turn here! Sure, I got it. Some of the track designs are pretty clever, though. The enemy drones are relentless, so don't mess up or you're screwed. And they don't ever seem to attack each other. That's not fair. Naturally, I did a lot of crashing and I discovered some stuff that pops out. That's cool, I'm gonna definitely need it. Beastbusters. This is an awesome shooter. It reminds me of what House of the Dead would be like with 2D graphics. Besides the zombies, you've got dogs, birds, fish that attack you. What is this, Piranha 3? There's also several creative-looking bosses. Check this guy out. What I really love about this game is how all these enemies explode in a shower of blood and guts. Kept me interested to say the least. Oh, and check out these grenade explosions. Yeah! They look awesome. There's lots of interesting stages, too. I like how you have to smash out the window in this elevator. Sometimes you scroll left to right or even into the screen. That keeps it fresh and interesting. This game is beautiful to look at, but it does get a little monotonous. Still, it's worth a playthrough. Cosmic Cop. This is a shooter from IREM, kind of like R-Type. You have your standard weapon that you can build up, and then a laser that auto-targets enemies. It will heat up over time, so you can't use it very long. The visuals are great with some sweet details in the ship designs. Kinda reminds me of Metal Slug's level of detail. Anyone know if these games share the designers? You can bump into things and not get blowed up, like the ceilings and the sand coming out of these pipes. This is a fun game, but it is tough. I should have changed it to very easy with 5 lives before I started. Dragon Breed. Here we have a very interesting but very tough shooter. What you do is you ride on this dragon and you shoot enemies. You don't see this every day. So the kicker here is that your dragon is invincible, however, you are not. So you need to find ways to maneuver him to protect you. You can curl your dragon into a ball for protection, but that doesn't work for very long. What you really need to do is learn to swing him around to block enemies from reaching you. And you're going to need all the help you can get because there are just so many enemies on the screen and they're all shooting at you. Oh, come on, this is some real BS right here. You can collect power-ups for you and your dragon, but don't get too complacent. That dragon breath only works when the enemies are close, just like in real life. There's also a power shot you can perform if you hold down the fire button. This one is really tough, but I do love the creativity shown here in this game. Fantasy. I remember seeing this game at Electronic Games magazine where it showed the gorilla throwing coconuts. I was big into Donkey Kong, so, that alone made me want to play it. This is a multi-stage game where you must rescue your girlfriend. Yeah, I know, it doesn't sound all that creative, does it? What I find interesting, though, is that this game was created by Rock-Ola. Aren't they the guys that make jukeboxes? I don't know, I guess they wanted to try their luck at video games, too. This Donkey Kong-like stage kind of sucks because you can't jump. In this one, all you have to do is avoid the tiger. It's not really hard, all you gotta do is just move out of the way. Sometimes you have a sword to attack with, and you'll need it to save her, especially from these cannibals. This balloon stage here was especially tough because there's no way to shoot. Instead, you have to maneuver your balloon in order to get the gun to shoot the helicopters instead. I like that there's a lot of different voice in the game, but dang, is the music loud enough? Tough game, but at least you can continue when you die.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Future Spy. Here we have what is clearly a derivative of Zaxxon, probably using the same hardware. It even has many of the same sound effects. This kind of feels like a copy-paste job. In the game, you fly as a jet shooting helicopters, other jets, and missiles, all while trying to bomb ground targets like ships, fuel depots, turrets, bridges, and other stuff. You can only fly in 2 dimensions, and that limited motion makes it especially hard to avoid incoming missiles or bombs. How come they took away the ascend and descend mechanic? Maybe they wanted to be different from Zaxxon, I don't know. Oh, and watch this. The planes will literally crash into you. That's unfair. This is an interesting game just to see how Sega tried to extend Zaxxon, but it's too hard to be any fun. Jailbreak. Here's one that I think Konami would rather you forget about. I wonder why. Anyway, in this game, a group of misunderstood folks have broken out of prison. See, they just want to go home to live a life of peace and harmony. Then you come along and start blasting them to smithereens. How dare you uphold the law? So you have your standard sidearm to stop them, but then there's this kid just standing around on the street near a bar. Hey kid, you don't happen to have a rocket launcher, do you? You do? Awesome! If you last 10 seconds longer, you might come across someone with a grenade launcher. Thanks, dude. Also, be careful you don't blast this woman. She's apparently taking her casino winnings to the local charity. Even with those extra weapons, this game is extremely hard. I can't get very far into it at all. But hey, this is certainly a game you don't see very often. Maybe I should just buy these guys a drink instead of shooting them. Ninja Baseball Batman. I don't know, I think this game should be pronounced Ninja Baseball Bat Man. I don't know, what do you think? It's a pretty nutty side-scrolling beat-em-up action game. I like the full-on swing attack you can perform. And it's gone! So there are 4 characters you can choose from, and they're all pretty different. Jose has a single large bat. Rhino has 2 small bats. Roger has bat with a baseball on it, and Straw looks to have a stickball bat. There are so many crazy enemies in this game. Baseballs, planes, cars, playing cards. Now this is a fever dream. There's some weapons besides your bat that you can collect, like these bases that you throw like ninja shurikens. There's also bombs that you can use to blow up enemies. The backgrounds are pretty interesting and very colorful. I especially like this part of the game where the floor gets all smashed up. Definitely a whacked out and creative looking game, and I find it totally enjoyable. Radar Scope. Ah yes, the boring shooter game that Nintendo thought would set the world on fire. The story goes that Minoru Arakawa, who was running Nintendo of America at the time, asked Hiroshi Yamauchi to send him a new game to replace this one since it was so badly received. So Shigeru Miyamoto created Donkey Kong, and a lot of these radar scope machines were converted. I mean, which would you rather play, this or Donkey Kong? This is a pretty basic shooter game with really not a lot of imagination, but it makes my list due to its place in history. Sea Fighter Poseidon. Here we have a side-scrolling underwater shooting game where you ride a submersible propulsion craft, had to look that name up, kind of like something out of a James Bond movie. Obviously, Taito reused the Jungle King hardware and graphic style for this one. You do have a fuel gauge, and I didn't see any way to fuel up until I learned that you can jump off and steal the enemy subs. You just have to shoot them off the sub first. Also, if you're fast enough, you can save your life before your sub explodes. Although that will leave you vulnerable and reduces your weapon strength. Great, now all I got is this lousy harpoon. I guess now I should mention what the goal of the game is. What you have to do is rescue these, shrunken guys in tiny glass containers? I don't know, that's kind of strange. Anyway, I kind of enjoyed this one. It's kind of sad that the sub-writing genre of video game died out. I mean, we should still be playing games like this nowadays. Shuuz. Seriously, a Horseshoe video game? What will Atari Games think up next? Anyway, this game is actually very fun. I like the colorful imagery and character animation, not to mention all the voice and sound effects.
Player 1 scores 1 ringer and 3 points.
I love how they really leaned into those countrified vocals.
Yeehaw!
This one uses a trackball for control. So what you do is position your player, then roll the ball for the angle you want, and then roll it again for the speed.
Little sticks.
Now I'm using my mouse here instead, and it's certainly not as good, but it's still playable.
Am I hot or what?
Trying to get the exact right angle and speed on the throw is, I don't know, strangely addicting.
No!
Also, I like the animation of the horseshoe when you get a ringer. So satisfying. Don't let the topic of this game detract you from playing it. It is a ton of fun, and if I ever see it in the wild, I am definitely taking it over for a good while. Skull and Crossbones. In this brawling game, you choose between pirates named One Eye or Red Dog to recover your stolen treasure from the evil wizard. The mechanic is rather unique because instead of your fist, you use your sword. You can power up your sword by collecting treasure. See how it glows with strength? Ooh, it's like a lightsaber. Attacking an enemy takes practice. Usually they block you, so you have to lunge at them when their guard is down. Also, I found it easier to do a reverse attack when they're behind you. They never even saw it coming! Your journey takes you to many locales to fight many different enemies. Ninjas, conquistadors, skeletons, and of course, other pirates. Once you get to the end of the stage, you fight the boss, who always turns out to be the evil wizard. You can pick up food and rum to increase your health a little bit. I kind of wish your pirate got woozy the more he drank though. That'd be kind of funny. Then you get to attack a ship and save the winch. Nice. Eventually you get to the end and have to do a boss rush to finally defeat the wizard. He's pretty tough. Space Launcher. Here's another Nintendo game that predates Donkey Kong, but this one looks a little bit more interesting than Radar Scope. All you need to do is get your rocket to the top of the screen into one of those bases. Each base is a different point value, so there's a certain risk and reward going on here. Do I choose the easy base for only 100 points, or the hard base for 500 points? If you get close to the enemies, a shield will appear in front of your rocket so you can smash into them. Unfortunately, that's the only way you can destroy your enemies. After you dock with a base, you have to get your rocket back to the surface, kind of like SpaceX. This is a pretty simple game, but I actually found it entertaining. Special Project Y, or Spy. Get it? Spy? In this one, you must travel to the supervillain's lair and take him out, I guess. I mean, I didn't read the storyline, and if you did for this game, you're weird. You start off by flying on a rocket pack and shooting enemies into the screen. Kind of like Space Harrier. Ugh, I hate Space Harrier. Hope it gets better than this. Oh, okay, now it's a side-scrolling brawling game. Well, that's more my speed. Wait, didn't I have a gun in the last stage? Where did it go? Oh, I see, you have to pick them up now. That makes sense. Next we have a run into the screen stage, and my gun is back. What the heck? One thing that I noticed with these into the screen stages is that you can't attack behind you even though the enemies can chase you. The only way to get them is to either back up or use your super weapon. That is awesome! These gameplay styles alternate until you get to the end boss. Well, I mean, I guess. I kind of got bored with it after a while. Especially this stage where you have to jump up and up and up. The last stage that I played kind of reminded me of Contra for the arcade, where you traverse this maze. This is a pretty fun game, but I think it's got a few too many stages. Tazz-Mania. Okay, in this game you are not playing Taz from the Warner Brothers cartoons. Instead, you are this weird green dude with a gun shooting stationary enemies on the stages in order to open the exit. There are also multiple moving enemies, and they all have different patterns for each round. Aside from your regular gun, you also have a super weapon, but it only takes out the moving enemies. I mean, I wish it took out at least a few of the stationary ones. Jeez. So this game was by Stern Electronics, who is famous for Berserk, right? Well, Berserk inspired Eugene Jarvis to create Robotron, which kind of reminds me of Tazz-Mania. I guess it came full circle, huh? Also, Atari owns Stern nowadays, so I guess we can expect a Tazz-Mania Recharge game soon. Tetris. Okay, so you're thinking, what's unique about Tetris? Well, first of all, this game is in an arcade cabinet, not on Game Boy or a computer. Also, it's by Atari Games, whose home division called Tengen, or Tengen if you prefer, released a similar looking and playing version for the NES. And we all know the story there, right? What's cool about this one is that it's two-player. I'd show you, but as you know, you gotta have friends. Another thing that's different about this version is that once you reach the line goal for the stage, it moves on to the next. You know, I'm kind of used to Tetris just continuing and not stopping for stages. After round 4, you start getting extra blocks in the pit to mess you up. That, I think, is a pretty good challenge and doesn't mess me up all that much. Although one thing that does mess me up is the flipping of the pieces. There's only one button to turn them, and it always goes the opposite way that I expect. Then in round 7, you get random blocks appearing in a pit right as you're about to place a piece. That is some BS right there. So should you play Tetris in the arcade? Yes, at least once. Tetris. You're thinking, what's unique about Tetris? Well, first of all, this game is in an arcade cabinet, not on Game Boy or computer. Wait, didn't I just say that? Anyway, this one is by Sega, and I think it only appeared in Japan. Looks like I picked the version with the boring backgrounds because there's another, better arcade version with random backgrounds. That one also appeared on the Genesis and the Genesis Mini. This is more of a bog standard game of Tetris. The pieces are boring to look at, but at least it plays continuously, getting faster and faster as you go. There's a couple of other arcade ports of Tetris, but these two are the most worthy to be mentioned. The Three Stooges. Who doesn't love the Stooges? Larry, Moe, and Curly star in this game where the subtitle is called Brides is Brides. But it's kind of funny, I'm not seeing any brides. I don't know, maybe they're at the end?
Hey, watch out!
The goal here is to find 3 keys so that you can escape the room. How do you find the keys? By smashing everything with a hammer. Makes sense to me. You can throw pies to slow down your opponents, but it doesn't last long in my opinion. You can also slap characters to knock them down, but that's risky. They can also knock you out too.
Hey, watch out!
The cop is who you really need to look out for. If he catches you, you lose a turn. There's lots of voice in the game, which is pretty interesting. Not great, but interesting.
Oh, a whirl, a voice, huh?
It's a little repetitive, but it sounds like the actual voices from the actors.
Pretty good, huh?
Control is not great, and neither is the gameplay, but hey, it's the Stooges, so naturally I'm just drawn to it. Water ski. As I started this one, I wondered, is this the inspiration for the Atari 7800 game? It seems similar, but here you're controlling the skier instead of the boat. You still have to guide him through a densely packed lake, avoiding rocks, sharks, and ski jumps. Seriously, I tried jumping this thing like 15 times and it never worked, so it's best just to avoid it. Also, what is the deal with all the rocks? Both this and the 7800 game have them all over the lake. Is this truly a good representation of skiing? I don't think so. One thing I'd like is if the boat didn't constantly try to mess me up. He's always steering me in and out of these rocks. Come on, man, get off the sauce. So I'm not going to say that this is a fun game, but hey, it's definitely different. Maybe we could somehow tie this with Fighter Poseidon. It's all one shared universe. Okay, so there you have it, some arcade games that I personally find rather unique. What arcade games do you find unique? Please let me know down in the comments. Until then, I want to thank you for watching, take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye everyone.